The text message glowed on Lily's phone screen like a neon sign advertising betrayal. "Can't wait to feel you again tonight, baby. Same place as yesterday?" I stood there in our kitchen, holding her phone that she'd carelessly left on the counter, watching 3 years of marriage crumble into digital dust. The sender was listed as E, but I knew exactly who that was. Ethan Morrison, her ex-boyfriend, the failed musician who'd been sniffing around her photography studio like a dog in heat. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Kyle Patterson, and until 30 seconds ago, I thought I had a decent life. I'm 29, work as a tech sales director for a mid-size software company here in Millbrook, Ohio. One of those industrial cities that pretends it's reinvented itself, but still smells like rust and broken dreams. Lily and I live in a converted warehouse loft downtown, all exposed brick and high ceilings, the kind of place that looks artistic but echoes with every footstep, every lie, every whispered phone call I apparently wasn't supposed to hear. I set the phone down carefully, my hands steadier than they had any right to be. 3 years of marriage, 5 years together total, and this is how I find out my wife is cheating, through a horny text message that reads like it was written by a teenager. The front door opened with its familiar creak. Lily's voice floated up from the entryway, bright and cheerful, completely oblivious to the fact that her world was about to shift on its axis. "Kyle, I'm home. Sorry I'm late. Jess and I were working on the Henderson wedding portfolio and lost track of time." Jess Martinez was Lily's business partner at their photography studio. Captured moments. A gossipy 26-year-old who treated other people's secrets like currency and had the loyalty of a weather vane in a tornado. If Lily was having an affair, Jess either knew about it or was actively helping to cover it up. "In the kitchen," I called back, my voice surprisingly normal. I'd always been good at compartmentalizing. It's what made me successful in sales. Keep your emotions locked down, present the right face, close the deal. Lily appeared in the doorway, and for a moment, I saw her as if for the first time. She was beautiful, I'd give her that. Auburn hair that caught the light just right, green eyes that sparkled when she laughed, a smile that had convinced me to propose on a rooftop 3 years ago. She was wearing her usual work outfit, black jeans, vintage band t-shirt, leather jacket that made her look like she belonged in some indie film about tortured artists. "What's for dinner?" she asked, dropping her camera bag on the floor with a thud that echoed through the loft. "I'm starving." "Funny you should ask," I said, leaning against the counter with my arms crossed. "I was just thinking about what I'm hungry for myself." She moved to the refrigerator, completely missing the edge in my voice. "There's leftover Chinese from Tuesday, or I could make pasta. Oh, and I need to talk to you about something." My stomach clenched. Here it comes, I thought. The confession, the tears, the "it just happened" speech that cheating spouses have been giving since the dawn of time. "I'm listening," I said. She turned around, and I could see something flickering in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or just the calculation of someone trying to figure out how much truth she could get away with telling. "Ethan's back in town," she said, and I had to admire her directness. "He called me yesterday. He's having a rough time, going through some personal stuff, and he asked if we could meet up for coffee. You know, as friends." "Friends," I repeated, tasting the word like it was something sour. "How nice for both of you." "Kyle, don't be like that. I know you never liked him, but that was years ago. We're all adults now." "Adults," I said, nodding slowly. "Right. Adults who send text messages about feeling each other again." The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her eyes darted to her phone on the counter, then back to me, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head as she tried to figure out damage control. "Kyle, I can explain." I'm sure you can. You're very creative. It's one of the things I used to love about you. She moved toward me, hands outstretched, like she was approaching a wounded animal. It's not what you think. We just had coffee, I interrupted. Is that what the kids are calling it these days? We talked. That's all. Just talked. I picked up her phone and held it out to her. Then you won't mind showing me the rest of your conversation with E. She didn't take the phone. Instead, she sank into one of our kitchen chairs, her face buried in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. How long? I asked. Kyle. How long, Lily? 2 weeks, she whispered, since he came back to town. 2 weeks. 14 days of coming home to me, sleeping in our bed, eating meals I cooked, letting me kiss her goodbye every morning while she was planning to meet her ex-lover. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. I'd learned a long time ago that showing weakness in a negotiation was the fastest way to lose everything. Where? I asked. Does it matter? It matters to me. She looked up, tears streaming down her face, and for a second, I saw the girl I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. Then I remembered the text message and the feeling passed. The Riverside Motel on Highway 9, she said. Room 127. The Riverside Motel was a dump, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about who was paying. It was also less than 2 miles from her studio, which meant she could slip away during lunch breaks or between client meetings. Very convenient. Why? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. I don't know, she said, which was probably the first honest thing she'd said all evening. He called, and he sounded so lost, so broken. He said he'd made mistakes, that he'd never gotten over me. And I guess I never got over him either. There it was. The truth, served up with a side of emotional manipulation. Ethan was lost and broken, so naturally Lily had to comfort him with her body. It was almost poetic, in a pathetic sort of way. So what now? I asked. I don't know, she said again. I love you, Kyle. I do. But I love him too. And I don't know how to choose. Well, that's convenient for you, I said. Having your cake and eating it too. It's not like that. Isn't it? You get to keep your stable life with me. The loft, the shared expenses, the reliable husband who pays half the bills, while you play out your romantic fantasy with the tortured musician. Sounds like a pretty good deal from where I'm sitting. She stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. You don't understand. You've never understood. You think everything is about money and stability and playing it safe? Some of us need more than that. More than what? More than honesty? More than loyalty? More than the vows we made 3 years ago? More than this, she shouted, gesturing around the kitchen. This routine, this predictable life where nothing ever changes and nothing ever surprises you. Ethan makes me feel alive again. And I make you feel what exactly? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I nodded slowly, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest. Okay, I said. I understand now. Do you? She asked, hope creeping into her voice. Because if you do, maybe we can figure this out. Maybe there's a way. Oh, there's definitely a way, I said, smiling for the first time since I'd read that text message. You're absolutely right, Lily. Life should be full of surprises. She looked confused, which was exactly how I wanted her. In sales, you learn that information is power, and the person who knows the least is always at a disadvantage. Right now, Lily thought she held all the cards. She thought she could have her affair and her marriage too, that I'd be the understanding husband who'd wait patiently while she figured out what she wanted. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I'm going to Mark's, I said, grabbing my keys from the counter. I need some air and some perspective. Kyle, wait, can't we talk about this more? We'll talk, I said, but right now I need to think. I left her standing in the kitchen, looking lost and confused. As I walked to my car, I was already making plans. Mark Hendricks was my best friend, a guy I'd known since college who worked construction and had a very practical view of problems and their solutions. He was also the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions. Not that it would come to that, but it was nice to know I had someone in my corner. The Copper still was our usual hangout, a dive bar on the east side of town that served cheap beer and minded its own business. Mark was already there when I arrived, sitting at our regular table in the back corner, nursing a Budweiser and scrolling through his phone. "You look like someone just told you your dog died," he said as I sat down. "What's wrong?" "Lily's cheating on me," I said without preamble. Mark's expression darkened. He'd never particularly liked Lily, thought she was too high maintenance and self-centered for someone who made her living taking pictures of other people's happy moments. "You sure?" he asked. I told him about the text message, about Lily's confession, about the Riverside Motel and 2 weeks of lies. Mark listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with every detail. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I'm going to make her regret it," I said. "Kyle, man, I get that you're pissed, but—" "No," I interrupted, "not pissed. That's too simple, too emotional. I'm going to be strategic about this." Mark signaled the bartender for another round. "Okay, I'm listening." "Lily thinks she can have it both ways. She thinks she can keep me as her safety net while she plays house with her ex-boyfriend. She's counting on me being predictable, being the stable guy who'll forgive and forget because that's what stable guys do. And you're not going to be that guy." "I'm going to be exactly that guy," I said, smiling, "right up until I'm not." Over the next 2 hours, Mark and I worked out the basics of what I was starting to think of as the Lily problem. The key was patience and information gathering. I needed to know everything about her affair, when they met, where they went, what they talked about, how long they planned to keep it going. I needed to understand the full scope of her betrayal before I could figure out how to respond to it. "You know this is going to get messy," Mark said as we prepared to leave. "It's already messy," I replied. "I'm just going to make sure I'm not the one who has to clean it up." I drove home slowly, taking the long way through downtown Millbrook. The city looked different somehow, like I was seeing it through new eyes. The old factory buildings that had been converted into lofts and art studios, the trendy restaurants that had sprung up in the past few years, the young professionals walking their dogs and pretending they lived somewhere more interesting. It all seemed like an elaborate stage set for a play I was no longer interested in watching. Lily was asleep when I got home, or at least pretending to be. I could tell by her breathing that she was awake, waiting to see if I wanted to talk more, but I wasn't ready for round 2. Instead, I went to my home office and fired up my laptop. The first thing I did was check our joint bank accounts and credit cards. Everything looked normal. No unusual charges, no cash withdrawals that might indicate she was spending money on her affair. That was actually disappointing. It would have been nice to have some concrete financial evidence of her betrayal. Next, I logged into our shared cell phone account and pulled up Lily's call and text logs. The account showed calls to Ethan's number going back 3 weeks, not 2 like she'd claimed. The calls started short, just a few minutes, but quickly grew longer. Yesterday's call lasted 47 minutes. I printed out the phone records and put them in a folder I labeled documentation. In sales, you learn to keep meticulous records of every interaction, every promise made and broken. This situation would be no different. The next morning, Lily was already gone when I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone to studio early. We need to talk tonight. I love you. L." I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash, then retrieved it and smoothed it out. Evidence. Everything was potential evidence now. At work, I found it hard to concentrate on quarterly sales projections and client presentations. My mind kept drifting back to Lily and Ethan, wondering what they were doing, what they were planning. Were they together right now? Was she telling him about our conversation last night, asking his advice on how to handle her inconvenient husband? Around noon, I decided to take an extended lunch break. Instead of going to my usual sandwich shop, I drove across town to Lily's studio. Captured Moments occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse in the Arts District, all floor-to-ceiling windows and exposed ductwork. Through the windows, I could see Lily and Jess working on something at a computer, heads bent together in concentration. They looked innocent enough, just two small business owners trying to make a living in a competitive market. I parked across the street and waited. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to see, but I had time to kill and nowhere else I wanted to be. At 1:15, a beat-up Honda Civic pulled up in front of the studio. Ethan Morrison got out, and I got my first look at Lily's affair partner in 5 years. He looked exactly like what he was, a 31-year-old man still trying to be 21. Skinny jeans, vintage band t-shirt, carefully tousled hair that probably took 20 minutes to achieve. He had the kind of studied casualness that screamed, "I'm too cool to care," which usually meant he cared more than anyone else in the room. Ethan went into the studio, and through the windows I could see Lily's face light up when she saw him. She said something to Jess, who looked toward the door with obvious interest. Then Lily and Ethan disappeared into the back room where they kept the developing equipment and storage. They were back there for 37 minutes. When they emerged, Lily's hair was messed up, and Ethan was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. They kissed goodbye, not a friendly peck, but a long, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. Ethan left first, and I followed him. He drove to a rundown apartment complex on the south side of town, the kind of place where the parking lot was more potholes than asphalt and half the streetlights were broken. He lived in Unit 2B, according to the mailbox, and from the look of the building, his rent probably cost less than what Lily and I spent on groceries each month. I sat in my car for a while, staring at Ethan's apartment and thinking about what I'd just witnessed. 37 minutes in the back room of my wife's studio. 37 minutes of my marriage being flushed down the drain while I sat in client meetings and worried about quarterly projections. When I got back to the office, I had a voicemail from Lily. "Hey, it's me. I know things are weird right now, but I was thinking maybe we could go to dinner tonight. Somewhere nice. We need to talk. But maybe we could also just be us for a while. Call me back." I deleted the message without returning the call. That evening, I got home to find Lily in the kitchen, cooking what looked like an elaborate meal. She was wearing a dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year, and she'd done something different with her hair. She looked beautiful, which made everything worse. "I thought I'd make your favorite," she said when she saw me. "Chicken marsala with those roasted potatoes you like." "Smells good," I said, though I wasn't hungry. "Kyle, about last night." "Let's eat first," I interrupted. "I'm starving." Dinner was awkward, full of forced conversation about work and the weather and anything except the elephant in the room. Lily kept glancing at me nervously, clearly trying to gauge my mood and figure out her next move. "How was your day?" she asked as we cleared the dishes. "Productive," I said. "I learned some interesting things." "Oh, like what?" "Like the fact that you've been lying to me for 3 weeks, not 2. She froze with a plate halfway to the dishwasher. "Kyle." "Phone records, Lily. I can see every call you've made to Ethan going back to March 15th. Want to revise your timeline?" She set the plate down carefully, her hands shaking. "You went through my phone records?" "Our phone records. Joint account, remember? Just like our joint bank account and our joint lease and our joint life that you've been systematically destroying for the past month." "It's not like that." "Then tell me what it's like. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning this for a while." "The first call to Ethan was 3 days after you told me you needed space to figure things out. Remember that conversation? You said you felt like we were in a rut, that you needed some time to think about what you wanted. I did need time to think. And apparently you decided what you wanted was your ex-boyfriend." Lily sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands. It's complicated, Kyle. No, it's really not. You made a choice. You chose to lie to me, to sneak around behind my back, to have sex with another man while you were married to me. The only complicated part is figuring out what comes next. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth, all of it. How long has this been going on, really? What are your plans? Are you leaving me for him? Or are you just going to keep both of us on the hook indefinitely? She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what I want. I love you, Kyle, but I love him too. And I know that's not fair to either of you, but I can't help how I feel. You can help what you do about how you feel. Can I? Because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like this is something that was always going to happen, like we were just delaying the inevitable. The inevitable? I repeated. So this marriage was doomed from the start? Maybe. I don't know. We got together so young and we never really dated anyone else seriously. Maybe we both needed to explore other options. We? I wasn't aware I was exploring other options. You could be. I wouldn't blame you if you were. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was serious. Are you giving me permission to cheat on you? I'm saying maybe we should take a break, see other people, figure out what we really want. A break, I said slowly. How modern of you. Kyle, please. I know this is hard, but maybe it's for the best. Maybe we both need this. What I need, I said, standing up, is a wife who doesn't fuck her ex-boyfriend in the back room of her photography studio. Lily's face went white. How did you? I followed him today. Watched him go into your studio. Watched you two disappear into the back room for 37 minutes. Watched him leave with that shit-eating grin on his face. Kyle, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I left her crying at the kitchen table and went to my office. I had work to do. The next few days fell into a strange routine. Lily and I barely spoke except when necessary, moving around each other like polite strangers sharing a hotel room. She left early for work and came home late, and I didn't ask where she'd been. I was pretty sure I knew anyway. Instead, I focused on gathering information. I drove by Ethan's apartment complex a few times and noted that Lily's car was there twice, once on Thursday afternoon and again on Friday evening. I checked our credit card statements and found charges at restaurants I'd never been to, a lingerie store I'd never heard of, and a florist that specialized in romantic arrangements. I also did some research on Ethan Morrison himself. Social media made it easy to piece together his life story. Failed musician who'd spent his 20s chasing record deals that never materialized, a string of part-time jobs and get-rich-quick schemes, 2 previous relationships that had ended badly according to his ex-girlfriend's very public Facebook posts. He was currently working as a rideshare driver and part-time bartender, living paycheck to paycheck in that shitty apartment complex. In other words, he was exactly the kind of romantic disaster that would appeal to Lily's artistic sensibilities. The tortured artist, the misunderstood genius, the man who was too pure for this crass commercial world. It was like a bad indie movie, complete with a soundtrack of obscure bands and meaningful glances across crowded coffee shops. On Saturday morning, Lily announced that she was going out with Jess for the day. Girl time, she called it, as if we were still pretending her affair wasn't happening. I told her to have fun and waited until she left before putting the next phase of my plan into action. I drove to Captured Moments and parked across the street, just like I had earlier in the week. The studio was closed on weekends, but I could see lights on in the back room. After about 20 minutes, Lily and Ethan came out together, holding hands and laughing about something. They got into Lily's car and drove to the farmer's market downtown, where they wandered around like a couple of tourists, buying organic vegetables and artisanal bread and taking pictures of each other with Lily's expensive camera. They looked happy, carefree, like people who didn't have a care in the world. From there, they went to lunch at a trendy bistro in the arts district, sitting at a sidewalk table where anyone could see them. Lily kept touching Ethan's hand across the table, and he kept making her laugh. They looked like they were in love, like they were the main characters in their own romantic comedy. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Documentation. After lunch, they drove to Riverside Park, where they walked along the river holding hands and taking more pictures. At one point, Ethan pulled Lily into his arms and kissed her right there on the walking path, in broad daylight, where any of our mutual friends or acquaintances could have seen them. That's when it hit me. They wanted to be seen. This wasn't just an affair, it was a public declaration. They were tired of sneaking around, tired of meeting in motel rooms and stolen moments at the studio. They were ready to come out into the open, which meant Lily had already made her choice. She just hadn't figured out how to tell me yet. I drove home and spent the rest of the afternoon researching divorce lawyers and apartment rentals. If Lily wanted out of our marriage, I wasn't going to make it difficult for her. But I also wasn't going to make it easy. That evening, she came home glowing and relaxed, looking like someone who'd spent the day doing exactly what she wanted to do. "How was your day with Jess?" I asked. "Good," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We went to the farmer's market, had lunch, walked around downtown, girl stuff." "Sounds fun. Did you take any pictures?" "A few, nothing special." I nodded and went back to reading my book, a biography of a tech entrepreneur who'd built $1 billion company from nothing. Lily hovered in the doorway for a moment, like she wanted to say something else, but eventually she went upstairs to shower. While she was in the bathroom, I went through her purse and found her camera. The digital display showed 127 new photos from today's adventure with Ethan. I scrolled through them quickly. Candid shots of him at the farmer's market, selfies of them together at lunch, artistic black and white photos of their intertwined hands. The last photo was a selfie of them kissing by the river, Lily's eyes closed and a blissful smile on her face. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. I deleted that photo and put the camera back in her purse. Sunday was more of the same fake normalcy. Lily made pancakes for breakfast and suggested we go see a movie, like we were a normal couple having a normal weekend. I agreed, mostly because I was curious to see how far she was willing to take the charade. We saw some romantic comedy that Lily picked out, and she spent the entire movie texting someone, Ethan presumably, while I sat next to her in the dark theater, planning her downfall. After the movie, we went to dinner at our usual place, an Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date 5 years ago. Lily seemed nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring and making small talk about work and the weather. "Kyle," she said finally as we waited for dessert, "we need to talk about us." "Okay," I said. "I'm listening. This isn't working. You know that, right? We're both miserable, we're barely talking, and we're just going through the motions." "Are we?" I hadn't noticed. "Come on. You've been different all week, distant, cold." "Have I? I wonder why that might be." She sighed and pushed her hair back from her face, a gesture I'd once found endearing. "I know you're angry about Ethan, and I understand that. But maybe this is a sign that we need to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" "I think we should separate. Take some time apart to figure out what we really want." "And by take some time apart, you mean you want to move in with your boyfriend while keeping me as a backup plan in case things don't work out?" "That's not, isn't it? Because that's exactly what it sounds like to me." Lily looked around the restaurant nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. "Can we not do this here?" "Where would you like to do it? At home, where you've been lying to me for a month? At your studio, where you've been fucking your ex-boyfriend? At the Riverside Motel, where you've been playing out your romantic fantasy while I pay half your bills?" "Kyle, please. People are staring." I looked around the restaurant. She was right. Several other diners were glancing in our direction, drawn by the tension in my voice. "You're right," I said, lowering my voice. This isn't the place for this conversation. I signaled the waiter for the check, and we drove home in silence. Once we were back in the loft, Lily immediately went on the offensive. I know you're hurt, she said, but you don't have to be cruel about it. Cruel? I haven't even started being cruel yet. What's that supposed to mean? I sat down on the couch and looked at her standing in the middle of our living room, wringing her hands like a guilty child. It means I know about yesterday, Lily. I know you weren't with Jess. I know you spent the day with Ethan, holding hands at the farmer's market, having lunch at Cafe Luna, taking romantic photos by the river. Her face went pale. You followed me? I documented your activities, yes, along with your phone calls, your text messages, your credit card purchases, and your general pattern of deception over the past month. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. Lily sank into the armchair across from me, looking stunned. Kyle, I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Were you planning to sit me down and have an honest conversation about your feelings? Were you going to ask for a separation before you started sleeping with your ex? Or were you just going to keep lying until one of us got tired of the charade? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to rent motel rooms and delete text messages and lie to my face every day for a month. I was trying to protect you. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Protect me? From what? From getting hurt unnecessarily. I thought maybe it would just be a fling, something I could get out of my system, and then we could go back to normal. Normal? Right, because nothing says normal marriage like your wife fucking her ex-boyfriend to get him out of her system. Lily started crying again, but this time I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her, no desire to fix whatever was broken between us. She'd made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. What happens now? She asked. Now you move out, I said simply. Kyle, you want to be with Ethan? Fine. Go be with Ethan. But you don't get to have both of us. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe your boyfriend can help you figure that out. This is my home too. It was your home when you were my wife. Now you're just someone who used to live here. She looked around the loft like she was seeing it for the first time. The exposed brick walls we'd painted together, the vintage furniture we'd picked out at flea markets, the framed photos of our wedding and various vacations. 3 years of shared life, reduced to a real estate transaction. I can't afford a place on my own, she said quietly. Then I guess you'll have to get creative. Maybe Ethan can help with the rent. He doesn't have any money. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to blow up your marriage for him. Lily wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been anger or might have been desperation. You're really going to throw away 3 years of marriage just like that? I'm not throwing anything away, Lily. You already did that. She stood up and started pacing around the living room, her hands fluttering nervously. What if I ended it with Ethan? What if I told him it was a mistake, and we tried to work things out? Do you want to end it with Ethan? She hesitated just long enough to answer my question. I didn't think so, I said. Kyle, please. Can't we at least try counseling or something? Maybe we can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. That night, Lily slept in the guest room. I could hear her crying through the thin walls, but I put in earbuds and listened to a podcast about successful business negotiations until I fell asleep. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. She'd left another note. Staying at Jess's for a few days to give us both some space. We need to figure out the practical stuff. Lease, bills, etc. I'll call you tonight. L. I crumpled up the note and threw it away, then retrieved it and added it to my documentation folder. At work, I found it easier to concentrate now that the pretense was over. There was something liberating about having everything out in the open, even if everything was a complete disaster. I threw myself into a new client presentation, channeling my anger and frustration into charts and graphs and profit projections. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Heard through the grapevine that Lily's been staying at Jess's place. You okay? I texted back. Better than okay. Phase 2 begins now. Phase 2? Meet me at the Copper Still tonight. I'll explain everything. That evening, I laid out my plan for Mark over cheap beer and peanuts. It was elegant in its simplicity. I was going to give Lily exactly what she thought she wanted, and then I was going to sit back and watch her realize what she'd given up. You're going to let her move in with Ethan? Mark asked. I'm going to encourage it, make it seem like the obvious solution to everyone's problems. And then what? Then I'm going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of person she really is. Mark looked skeptical. Kyle, man, I get that you're pissed, but are you sure this is the way to go? Maybe you should just cut your losses and move on. She humiliated me, Mark. She made me look like a fool in front of everyone we know. She threw away our marriage for a loser who lives in a shithole apartment and drives for Uber. You think I'm just going to walk away and pretend it never happened? I think maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist or something. I don't need therapy. I need justice. Mark sighed and took a long pull from his beer. Okay, what do you need me to do? Over the next hour, we worked out the details. Mark knew people all over town, construction workers, bartenders, shop owners, the kind of folks who formed the backbone of Millbrook's gossip network. He also had a cousin who worked at a towing company and another cousin who was a landlord. In a town like Millbrook, family connections were everything. The plan was simple. I was going to systematically destroy Lily's reputation and financial stability while maintaining complete plausible deniability. By the time I was done, she'd be radioactive in this town, and Ethan would realize that being with her came with a very high price. This is going to get ugly, Mark warned me. It's already ugly, I replied. I'm just evening the score. When I got home that night, there was a message from Lily on the answering machine. Hi, it's me. I know you're probably still angry, but we really need to talk about practical things. The lease is up for renewal next month, and there are bills to pay, and I need to get some more of my stuff. Can you call me back? I'm at Jess's. You have the number. I didn't call her back. Instead, I spent the evening researching Millbrook's rental market and making a list of all the places Lily definitely couldn't afford on her photography income alone. It was a long list. The next day, Lily showed up at the loft while I was at work. I came home to find half her clothes gone, along with some of her photography equipment and personal items. She'd also taken some of our shared possessions, the good coffee maker, a set of dishes her mother had given us, a painting we'd bought together on our honeymoon. She'd left another note. Took some things I need. We still need to talk about everything else. Please call me. I didn't call her. Instead, I called our landlord, Mrs. Bixby, a shrewd woman in her 50s who owned half the rental properties in downtown Millbrook. Kyle, dear, how are you? She said when she picked up the phone. I was just thinking about your lease renewal. Are you and Lily planning to stay another year? Actually, Mrs. Bixby, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Lily and I are separating, and she's moved out. I'd like to keep the loft, but I'll need to take her name off the lease. Oh my, I'm so sorry to hear that. You two seemed so happy. Well, you know how these things go. People change. Indeed they do. Well, taking her off the lease shouldn't be a problem, as long as you can qualify for the rent on your own income. That won't be an issue. I got a promotion last month. This was true. I'd been promoted to senior sales director with a significant raise. Wonderful. I'll have the paperwork drawn up. And Kyle, if you need anything during this transition, please don't hesitate to call. Actually, there is one thing. Lily might call you looking for rental recommendations. I'd appreciate it if you didn't have any suitable properties available. There was a pause. I see. Well, the rental market is very tight right now. It's quite difficult to find quality housing on short notice. I'm sure it is. Thank you, Mrs. Bixby. Phase 2 had officially begun. Over the next few days, I put the rest of my plan into motion. I called our joint credit card companies and had Lily removed as an authorized user, citing the separation. I changed the passwords on all our streaming services and online accounts. I canceled her gym membership and her subscription to the photography magazines she loved. I also started spreading the word about Lily's affair, but subtly, the way these things are done in small towns. I mentioned to my barber that Lily and I were having trust issues. I told my dry cleaner that my wife was going through a phase with an old boyfriend. I let slip to the guy who delivered our groceries that Lily had been spending time with someone from her past. In a town like Millbrook, information traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at the speed of light. Within a week, everyone from the mailman to the mayor's secretary knew that Kyle Patterson's wife was cheating on him with some loser musician. The beauty of it was that I never said anything directly. I just provided context and let people draw their own conclusions. And the conclusions they drew were not flattering to Lily. Meanwhile, Lily was discovering that life with Ethan wasn't quite the romantic adventure she'd imagined. According to Jess, who'd started avoiding Lily after getting tired of being used as a cover story, Lily was sleeping on Ethan's couch because his apartment only had one bedroom and it was barely big enough for a single person. She was also having trouble focusing on work because she was stressed about money and housing and the general chaos of her life. 2 weeks after she'd moved out, Lily called me at work. "Kyle, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "About what?" "About everything. About the lease, about our stuff, about how we're going to handle this separation." "I thought you were handling it just fine. How's life with your boyfriend?" There was a long pause. "It's complicated." "I bet it is. Turns out real life isn't as romantic as stolen afternoons at cheap motels. Kyle, please, can we meet somewhere and talk like adults? We can talk right now. What do you want?" "I want to come home." I almost laughed. "Home? You mean the loft that you walked away from to be with Ethan?" "I made a mistake, okay? I got caught up in something that felt exciting and new, and I lost sight of what was important." "What was important?" "You. Us. Our marriage. Our marriage ended the day you decided to fuck your ex-boyfriend." "It doesn't have to. We could go to counseling, work through this." "Lily, let me ask you something. Are you still with Ethan?" Another long pause. "It's complicated. It's a yes or no question. Are you still in a relationship with Ethan Morrison?" "Yes, but..." "Then we have nothing to talk about." "Kyle, wait." I hung up. That afternoon, I got a call from Mrs. Bixby. "Kyle, dear, I just wanted to let you know that your wife called asking about rental properties. I told her we don't have anything available in her price range, which is true. Most of our units require a minimum income that's well above what she makes at that little photography studio. I appreciate you letting me know." She seemed quite desperate. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Well, I ran into Helen Morrison at the grocery store yesterday. That's Ethan's mother, you know. And she had some very interesting things to say about her son's new girlfriend. Apparently, Lily's been calling the house at all hours, crying about her problems. Helen thinks the girl is unstable." This was better than I'd hoped. Ethan's mother was one of the biggest gossips in Millbrook, and if she'd decided Lily was unstable, that opinion would spread through the entire town within days. "People make their own choices," I said diplomatically. "Indeed they do, and sometimes they have to live with the consequences." That evening, I went to the Copper Still to meet Mark for our weekly check-in. He was already there, nursing a beer and scrolling through his phone. "How's Operation Scorched Earth going?" he asked as I sat down. "Better than expected. Lily called today wanting to come home." "Already? That was fast." "Turns out living with a broke musician in a studio apartment isn't as romantic as she thought it would be." "You going to take her back?" "What do you think?" Mark grinned. "I think Lily Patterson is about to learn that actions have consequences." "Soon-to-be ex-Lily Patterson," I corrected. "I'm filing for divorce next week." On what grounds? Adultery. I've got documentation going back a month. Phone records, photos, credit card statements, witness testimony. She won't be able to deny it. What about the loft? I'm keeping it, along with everything else that matters. And Lily gets what? Whatever she can carry. Mark raised his beer in a toast. To justice served cold. Ice cold, I agreed. The next morning, I woke up to find Lily sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee like she still lived there. She looked terrible, exhausted, stressed, like she hadn't slept in days. How did you get in? I asked. I still have my key. Not for long. I held out my hand. Give it to me. Kyle, please, just hear me out. The key, Lily. She reluctantly handed over the key, and I pocketed it. Now you can say whatever you came to say, and then you can leave. I ended it with Ethan. Congratulations. Do you want a medal? I realized I made a terrible mistake. I threw away everything good in my life for something that was just fantasy, escapism. I want to come home, Kyle. I want to fix this. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. She looked hopeful, like she thought her little speech had changed something fundamental between us. Let me make sure I understand, I said. You had an affair, lied to me for weeks, moved out to be with your boyfriend, and now that things aren't working out the way you planned, you want to come back and pretend none of it happened. I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I want to work through it. People make mistakes, Kyle, even big ones. That doesn't mean the marriage has to be over. It does when the person making the mistakes doesn't actually seem sorry for making them. I am sorry. I'm incredibly sorry. Are you? Because it sounds to me like you're sorry things didn't work out with Ethan. That's not the same thing as being sorry you betrayed our marriage. Lily's face crumpled and she started crying again. I don't know how to make this right. You can't make it right. That's the point. So that's it? 3 years of marriage and you're just going to throw it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been desperation. What do you want me to do? Beg? Grovel? Tell me what it will take to fix this. There's nothing you can do, Lily. It's over. Kyle, please. It's over, I repeated, standing up. I'm filing for divorce next week. You should probably get a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to blow up your life. Lily sat there for a moment, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You've changed, she said finally. Have I? Or have you just never paid attention to who I really was? The Kyle I married would never be this cold. The Kyle you married would never have been cheated on by his wife. She stood up slowly, like an old woman with arthritis. I guess I deserved that. You deserve a lot more than that. After she left, I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. Then I called the divorce lawyer I'd researched and made an appointment for the following week. That afternoon, I ran into Jess at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she wasn't sure whether to acknowledge me or pretend we were strangers. Hi, Kyle, she said finally. Jess, how's business? Good. Busy. You know how it is. Actually, I don't. How is it working with someone who uses your friendship as a cover story for her affairs? Jess's face flushed. Kyle, I never meant... Of course you didn't. You just went along with it because it was easier than telling your business partner to stop lying to her husband. It's complicated. Everyone keeps saying that. It's not complicated, Jess. It's actually very simple. Lily cheated on me, and you helped her do it. I didn't help her do anything. You provided alibis. You covered for her when she was with Ethan. You knew what was going on, and you didn't say anything. Jess looked around the grocery store nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to be a decent human being. I left her standing there in the cereal aisle and finished my shopping. As I was checking out, I noticed the cashier giving me sympathetic looks. Word was definitely spreading. Over the next few days, I started running into more and more people who'd heard about Lily's affair. My mailman asked how I was holding up. The woman who ran the coffee shop downtown gave me a free pastry with my usual order. My dry cleaner offered to give me a discount because I was going through a rough time. The sympathy was nice, but the real satisfaction came from watching Lily's world slowly collapse around her. According to my sources, Mark's network of gossips and Mrs. Bixby's intelligence gathering, Lily was having trouble finding a place to live. Her photography business was suffering because potential clients were uncomfortable with her reputation, and Ethan had started avoiding her after his mother made it clear that Lily wasn't welcome in their family. 2 weeks after our kitchen confrontation, I got a call from Lily's mother, Patricia. "Kyle, dear, how are you holding up?" Patricia had never liked me much. She thought I was too practical, too focused on money and stability, not artistic enough for her precious daughter. But now she sounded genuinely concerned. "I'm doing fine, Patricia. How are you?" "Well, I'm worried about Lily. She called me yesterday, crying, saying she'd made terrible mistakes and didn't know how to fix them." "I'm sorry to hear that. Kyle, I know things have been difficult between you two, but do you think there's any chance you might be willing to work things out? For Lily's sake?" "Patricia, did Lily tell you what she did?" There was a long pause. "She said you two were having problems." "She had an affair, Patricia. For over a month she was sleeping with her ex-boyfriend while lying to my face every day. She moved out of our home to be with him, and now that it's not working out, she wants to come back and pretend none of it happened." Another pause, longer this time. I didn't realize it was that serious." "It's very serious. I'm filing for divorce." "Oh, Kyle, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Lily didn't tell you the whole story?" "She said you were being unreasonable, that you wouldn't forgive her for a small mistake." "A small mistake," I repeated. "Is that what she called it?" "Kyle, I'm so sorry. If I'd known, well, I wouldn't have called." "It's okay, Patricia. I understand you're worried about your daughter. What's going to happen to her?" "I don't know. That's not my problem anymore." After I hung up, I felt a moment of something that might have been guilt. Patricia sounded genuinely shocked by the truth, and I could hear the worry in her voice. But then I remembered Lily sitting in that restaurant, asking for a break so she could explore her options while keeping me as a safety net, and the guilt passed. The divorce proceedings went smoothly. Lily couldn't afford a good lawyer, so she ended up with a public defender who was more interested in getting through his caseload than fighting for his client's interests. I, on the other hand, had hired the best divorce attorney in the county, a shark named Rebecca Walsh, who specialized in cases involving adultery. "This is going to be easy," Rebecca told me during our first meeting. "You have documentation, witnesses, and a clear pattern of deception. Plus, Ohio is a fault state, which means adultery is grounds for divorce and can affect property division." "What does that mean for me?" "It means you're going to keep most of your assets, and she's going to walk away with very little." The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I kept the loft, our joint savings account, both cars, and most of our shared possessions. Lily got her photography equipment, her personal belongings, and a small settlement that would cover maybe 2 months of rent if she was careful. By then, her reputation in Millbrook was completely destroyed. The photography business she'd built with Jess had collapsed after several clients canceled their contracts, citing trust issues. Jess had dissolved their partnership and moved to Columbus to start over. Ethan had taken a job in Cleveland and left town without saying goodbye to anyone, including Lily. Lily herself had moved back in with her parents in Toledo, an hour's drive from Millbrook. According to the Gossip Network, she was working at a chain portrait studio in a shopping mall, taking pictures of babies and high school seniors for minimum wage plus commission. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into her at a gas station on the outskirts of town. She was driving her father's old pickup truck, and she looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past year. Her hair was shorter, her clothes were cheaper, and there was something defeated in her posture that hadn't been there before. "Kyle," she said when she saw me. "How are you?" "Good," I said. "You?" "Getting by." She gestured toward the truck. "Dad let me borrow his truck. My car finally died." "Sorry to hear that." We stood there for a moment in awkward silence, two people who used to share a life and now had nothing to say to each other. "I heard you're seeing someone," she said finally. This was true. I'd started dating Shannon Walsh, Rebecca's younger sister, a marketing executive who was smart, funny, and had no tolerance for drama or dishonesty. "I am," I said. "Is it serious?" "Serious enough." Lily nodded like this was what she'd expected to hear. "I'm glad you're happy." "Are you?" "Happy? I don't know. I'm learning to live with the choices I made. That's all any of us can do." She started to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. "Well, I should get going. It was good to see you, Kyle." "You too, Lily." I watched her drive away in her father's truck, and for a moment I felt something that might have been sadness. Not for what we'd lost, that was gone the moment she decided to cheat, but for what we'd never really had in the first place. Then I got in my car and drove home to the loft that was now entirely mine, to the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage, to the future that belonged to me alone. A year later, Shannon and I got engaged. We had the party on the rooftop of the loft, with Mark as my best man and half of Millbrook in attendance. It was a beautiful evening, warm and clear, with the city lights twinkling below us like fallen stars. During the toasts, Mark raised his glass and said, "To Kyle and Shannon, who prove that sometimes the best revenge is living well." Everyone laughed and applauded, but I knew he was right. I'd gotten my revenge on Lily, but more importantly, I'd gotten my life back. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd thought, more resilient than I'd imagined, and capable of surviving betrayal without losing my essential self. As the party wound down and our guests began to leave, Shannon and I stood on the rooftop looking out over the city. She was wearing the ring I'd given her, a simple solitaire that caught the light when she moved her hand. "Do you ever think about her?" Shannon asked. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not the way you might think." "What do you mean?" "I think about how different my life would be if she hadn't cheated. If we'd stayed married, kept pretending everything was fine, settled into that comfortable routine that slowly kills you without you even realizing it." "You think she did you a favor?" "I think she showed me who she really was, and who I really was, and that's information I needed to have." Shannon leaned against me, warm and solid and real. "And who are you really?" I thought about it for a moment, looking out over the city where I'd built my new life from the wreckage of my old one. "I'm someone who doesn't give second chances to people who don't deserve them," I said finally. "I'm someone who fights for what's mine and doesn't apologize for winning." "Good," Shannon said, smiling. "I like that in a man." 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with Mark and Shannon's sister as witnesses. No big wedding, no elaborate reception, no drama or complications. Just two people who'd found each other and decided to build something together. That night, as Shannon slept beside me in our bed, the same bed I'd once shared with Lily, I thought about the path that had brought me here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had actually saved me, freed me from a marriage that was slowly suffocating us both. Lily had wanted excitement, passion, the kind of love that burned bright and hot and consumed everything in its path. She'd gotten it, for a while. And then she'd learned what I'd always known. That kind of fire eventually burns itself out, leaving nothing but ashes and regret. I'd chosen a different path. I'd chosen the slow burn, the steady flame, the kind of love that builds rather than destroys. And in the end, I'd won. Not because I'd gotten revenge on Lily, though I had, but because I'd gotten something better. I'd gotten a life worth living, with a woman worth loving, in a city that had become truly mine. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about that text message that had started it all. Can't wait to feel you again tonight, baby. Lily had gotten what she'd wanted. She'd felt everything there was to feel: passion, excitement, heartbreak, loss, regret. She'd lived her romantic fantasy right up until it became a nightmare. And I'd gotten what I'd wanted too, though it had taken me a while to realize what that was. I'd gotten justice. I'd gotten peace. I'd gotten a future that belonged entirely to me. Best of all, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting everything.